Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Well, hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and I'm excited for y'all to meet Bennett Schwartz. Welcome to the podcast. Bennett, it's so great to have you.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me. I'm so excited to be here and hopefully share with your audience a little bit about what is it that I do and hopefully give them some practical tools that they can start to use.
Love it. Let's just dive into it. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you help people.
Sure. So my name is Bennett Schwartz, and I have a mentoring program for 15 to 23-year-olds where we work on personal development, we work on productivity, goal setting, accountability, and all that fun stuff, and really help them just build the tools that they need in order to become successful, throughout their lives.
How did you decide to work with this group or this population?
So it's interesting because as I was, graduated college, I always had this, I was always drawn to the more informal side of education. So really working with people in their own personal lives as opposed to like in front of my classroom. And over the past decade, I've been working with young adults. So whether it was in high schools or it was post-high school, really working with different people in different types of settings, whether it was camp, schools, and whatnot, and really helping them in terms of like their own personal lives. And then I was a dean of students at a high school for 4 years. And then about 3 years ago, I transitioned into this coaching role where I found out about it. It was like a crazy story how I found out about it. And then all of a sudden I'm doing this coaching thing and doing the thing that I'm really passionate about without being in front of the classroom, really working with people on a more personal level and really helping them just start to see that success.
Very cool. So, of course, I want to know how you found out about the coaching world, but that's another time. I would love to know more. So most of the kids that you work with, like, what are the issues that they come to you with?
Yeah, so it really depends. So because it's like 15 to 23-year-olds, I like to separate them into two different groups. So you have like the kids who are still in high school who are more just working on building their confidence and building their social skills or lessening their anxiety or helping them with decision making. And then like the older group of people are more just like life direction, trying to figure out careers. It happens to be a lot of overlap in terms of both sides, depending on the actual student, but really working with them on the actual fundamentals. And what I found is that when I first started doing coaching, I was actually working with only adults, and I was more personally and professionally, it was a lot of personal development. And what I found is that so many adults that I was working with, they were missing certain skills that if they would have had those skills when they were younger, their lives would have been totally different. And because of that, their lives now, when they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, I had a 72-year-old woman who I worked with, their lives were different, not because anything crazy happened to their lives, but just because they were missing certain skills. And I'm like, this is not okay. And I have to start working with younger people just to help them give them those tools, because if they can learn how confidence works or how decision-making works or any of these different ideas, it's only going to help them in their personal and professional lives and really give them, a great foundation to become more successful later on.
Okay. So now I want to know, what are those tools or the skills that you found that these 40 and 50 and 60-year-old and even 70-year-old people are lacking? Because I just turned 50 last year, so I'm like super curious. What am I lacking? Tell us.
So it really depends. So certain people are very into personal development and into this whole world. And so, for me, I was obsessed with it even before I formally became a coach. Mm-hmm. But recognizing that, like, even just like goal setting, how goals work. And I think a lot of it, what it comes down to is just the right expectation. And I think especially nowadays with social media and different things going on, we see certain people out there, we have friends, or we hear like somebody like made $1 million doing X, Y, and Z, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, I'm going to try to do it. And then the expectations that people have are just wrong. And Dennis Prager actually talks about this in his book, Happiness is a Serious Problem, where when I first heard this idea, I was like very like anti it. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? But he has this idea where we have to lower our expectations a little bit. And for me, I like to think I'm an optimistic type of person, and I'm like, no, I want to be able to like shoot for the stars and doing all these things, and it's be amazing, and everything is like great. But then on the other hand, recognizing that things are difficult in life, and if you want success, like, you have to be disciplined, you have to set up the right tools, and if you're not setting things up the right way, or if you just expect things to go one way and they don't go that way, which is realistically how things are going to go, then you're just going to be disappointed and be upset, and that disappointment and upsetness is only going to hold us back from seeing the success to move forward.
Yeah. So you're helping them kind of reframe their beliefs around quote unquote the world like failures, I guess.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
that's like one of the,
expectations. Mm-hmm.
yeah. One of the biggest shifts that I personally had was when I was working with one of my coaches
Mm-hmm.
and I was going through something and I ended up losing a lot of money in an investment deal. And I was like really bummed out, like rightfully so. And he goes to me, he's like, Bennett, like, why are you so upset? This is just feedback. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
1 sec, I need to take a step back here. Like,
Yeah.
one
Whoa.
second. Because like there's so many times that like you heard like these cute acronyms for failure and fail, they have all these like different things you see on social media. And for me, that word feedback
Mm-hmm.
was so important. And if you look at any successful business, they're constantly looking at the data. And I think if we as humans can look at our own personal data and our own personal lives, then we can start to say, hey, what is this information that has been working and not been working? And how can we tweak it to make sure we're doing more of the things that are working and like really use that as feedback moving forward in our lives? And by having that, then we can start to move forward. That's why I'm a huge proponent of journaling and really just getting our thoughts on paper, just so we can look back and be like, hey, what's going on? Like now I could recognize everything that's been happening to me just because like I've journaled it down or I've noted it down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so many nuggets in what you just said. So everybody go back 30 seconds and listen to that again. But I love how you said, and I can relate to that because when and I think it comes from like an abundance mentality or mindset or a fearful, mentality, because it's like if you have the idea that money is hard to make and money is hard to find and you invest in something and it blows up, it doesn't happen for you, then you feel so defeated, right? But if you have this abundance mindset of, oh, I can make money is not hard, money is out there, I just need to shift my mindset to attract it in. I know it's not as simple as that, y'all, but it's like you can see when things go south on an investment that you make, it's not a forever thing, it's not a character flaw, it's just feedback.
Right.
I really, it took me a long time to understand that. And I think you're right. Like the social media world, and we see things going on out there and instant gratification, and it must, an overnight success actually took 20 years in the making. There's a lot behind the scenes that we don't know about or hear about. And I love that. I do feel as though sometimes, I guess what I listen to these days, it is shifting a little bit because people are sharing more of the behind the scenes and the
Right.
backstory. And so there is the truth being told out there with a lot of people nowadays. It's not just you know, like,
Everything's easy.
yeah, showing you like the highlight reel of like, oh, this happened overnight. So many things that you just said. And of course, I'm like thinking about my own life and my own podcast and my own business. And this is just really great. So I think that's such an important lesson. And I try really hard to teach that we have two daughters, and I try to teach that to them too. Like, it's just feedback. It's not like this is not a forever thing. It's just, what do you
Right.
want to learn from this experience? So you're teaching these kids that notion, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that's where we're starting. When we
Mhm.
start working with one another, we set up the first thing we do is goal setting, because I
Okay.
think even just practically, if we could just start working on things, so whether the goal is going to be with the time we're working each other, whether this is like a 10-year goal, right?
Hmm.
So recognizing that if we could start to set the right goals and just start to set the right expectations, and part of the expectation is understanding that if things aren't working out, it doesn't mean anything about you. It's more just information that we didn't have before that now we have, that now we know we need to tweak, right? It's
Right.
like even like in the professional world, like if somebody's looking to finally get into like, I don't know, Facebook ads or Instagram ads or something like that, and then they try it once, and like there's no reason that they should be good at it, right? But for some reason they think like, I'm going to try to like make it, and then like it doesn't work, and then people usually stop. And by stopping, that's only failure, is if we stop. But if we continue going and say, okay, this didn't work, what can I do differently? Can I change the graphic? Can I change the title? Can I change the subheadline? And change all the different other aspects, and constantly looking to tweak it to make it better until we get to the place that we need to get to. And I think if I could teach these young adults this basic principle, like there's like literally nothing in life that they won't be able to accomplish, because they're constantly going to be looking at it as feedback as opposed to failure. And I think especially with the adults that I worked with, it was so hard to change even that mindset, because they have 10, 15, 20 years of reaffirming this idea that I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, these things didn't work. So when we have young adults who are just getting started, who maybe even seen some failure already, but it's so fresh and new, like they have the ability, oh, let me shift it, let me change that identity of myself about what this thing really is, so then I can start to really move forward and take advantage of all the other opportunities.
I want to share with you a fabulous offer from Therapy Notes. Have you ever felt swamped by endless paperwork and tangled schedules? Then step into a world of clarity with Therapy Notes. Hailed as the gold standard in electronic health records, Therapy Notes is your beacon in the dynamic realm of mental health care. With their round the clock 7-day live phone support, it's evident why they shine with a dazzling 4.9 out of 5 stars on trustpilot.com and Google. From effortless billing to streamlined scheduling, precise note taking, and state of the art telehealth, Therapy Notes is your all in one solution. And for the prescribers out there, they're ecstatic to introduce ePrescribe. And if you're switching lanes from another EHR, they've got your back. They will seamlessly migrate your demographic data at zero cost, ensuring you hit the ground running. So become part of the 100,000 plus mental health professionals community who've chosen Therapy Notes. And to embark on a 2-month complimentary journey, just tap the link in the show notes or use promo code Lisa at checkout at therapynotes.com. That's promo code Lisa, Lisa, at checkout at therapynotes.com. So dive into the Therapy Notes experience today and see why it's the talk of the town. Navigate with confidence and choose the best. Yeah, and it's something that I talk a lot about on the show and in my life and with my clients is if you can change your beliefs, if you can change your thoughts, you can change your life. So you're dealing with adults that have had these thoughts and beliefs and meaning making experiences for 30, 40 years. And it's tough, it's tough when you're that age to kind of go back and rewire yourself, but it's also very freeing at the same time if you're open to doing it. I mean, I love that. So I'm really curious, like, how do these kids find you? Are their parents reaching out to you? Are they reaching out to you? How do they get to you?
Yeah, so it's all different areas. So mostly it's the parents reaching out, like my kid needs some help. And it's interesting because like on the one hand, you have the type of student who is like in such like a rut that they're like, finished college even possibly, and they're just like at home and just like got nothing going on. And then you have the other student who's like, in high school who's very motivated to take their level to the next level, like to the next level. So recognizing that you have all different types of students who are reaching out, but it's mostly parents reaching out to me saying, hey, I think my child can, benefit from it. I do speak at schools. So sometimes kids at schools are like, oh, hey, like, I would love to see what it could do more. And then we get on the call with the parents and really try to make it, something like that. And we keep the parents very involved just because I think the coaching world is very different than the therapy world. So there is this accountability aspect. So there is going to be homework throughout the week and they're going to be touching in base just, throughout the week, making sure that things are going well and, what's coming up and whatnot. And really giving that person in their corner that they can have as a support. And that's why I like to call it like a mentoring program as opposed to a coaching program, because I want them to know that like they can reach out if they have any questions, whether it's me or to the other coaches that we have on staff, that we have the ability to be able to show that support to really make sure that they're going to do the things that they want to be doing.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about that client or that child that the parents are like, you're going to work with Bennett. I know you don't want to, but this is what you're doing. You have to. Like, how do you, I don't want to call them a difficult client or case, but I bet you encounter that too. These
100%.
What's that like?
So what I tell parents, because parents are like, will reach out to me like, I really want this for my kid, but like, how do I get my kid on board? And what I say is, I need your kid to be 5% bought in, which is like not a lot, like really not a lot, And then as long as I get on the call with the kid, I could start to work with them in terms of showing them how their life, that the things that they want to be doing are going to be different. So whether it's socially, they want to have more friends because every kid wants to have more friends. They want to, get better at sports or whatever it is that they want to be doing. If I could get on a call with them and show them that it's not like I'm not going to be talking about your past, it's not therapy. We're going to be talking about where you are now, where you want to go, and really working with you to try to discover who you are. And I think most kids, when you frame it like that, have the ability to say, you know what, this is a little different. I never tried this thing out before. And, telling them that I believe the number is 40 or 45% of, top CEOs of companies have coaches and all athletes have coaches. And if you really start to break it down differently, I think kids are more receptive to it and more interested in having that support. And the commitment is not so much. And it's really just showing them here, we're just going to be helping you become more of you. And that's going to be the thing that's going to help you take to the next level.
That's really cool. I love that. And so do you work with kids all over the country or just in
we work on Zoom. So in country we have some in South Africa actually. So really I guess globally now, but
very cool. Man.
Yeah.
And so you didn't start out in the coaching field though. So I want you to circle back to how you found coaching. I think this is really cool.
Yeah, so I started out in the educational world, and I was in education, like I mentioned. I was the dean of students, my last stint in the formal education world, and then I transitioned out of the coaching world, and I was also personally just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and it was ironic because I actually had a coach at the time, but I didn't know that I could become a coach. It was like a weird thing, and
Right.
during that time, it was also during COVID and all this stuff, and I started a podcast with a buddy of mine. It was my first podcast that I started. I stopped since then, but I started this podcast and it was really interviewing different people in different industries. So I had a bunch of friends who were lawyers, doctors, accountants, nurses, whatever it was. I was trying to find anybody in different industries and like just talk about their journey, what it is that it took them to get to where they are, and where it is that what's going on and whatnot. And I started to interview different people. And then there was this guy in my community who I knew was this coach. I'm like, oh, cool. What is this coaching thing? So we actually interviewed him on the podcast. And then after the podcast, I was on the call with him for like another hour and a half because I'm like, I got to find out more about this thing. We had like a very similar story, like based on like our experiences in the past. And after that call, he's like, if you want, I could help train you. I could work with you on becoming a coach. I'm like, this sounds amazing. So I ended up hiring him as my coach. He was my first like coach to help me coach. Then I joined the program and everything like that. And then, looking back, that's how it really got started.
I love coaching, and I being a therapist, I honestly, I know this is like, I don't even know if I should say this out loud, but sometimes I prefer being a coach than a therapist because like you've kind of alluded to already, you're working on where are you today, where do you want to go, and how are we going to get you there?
Right.
Versus therapy is there's a lot of stuff in your past that's like keeping you stuck in your present life. Well, I do think it's important to process those things if it's really keeping you stuck and you're having a really hard time, with your quality of life, just getting out of bed in the morning. Like you need to know where this is coming from, because then sometimes it's hard to work with a coach because you're so stuck. But I one of my favorite people I've ever worked with was a life coach. I mean, absolutely loved working with him. And it's a very different model. But yet at the same time, I feel like so many therapists are acting as life coaches. They don't even know it
Right.
sometimes. So if you're a therapist out there and you're like kind of confused about this, is like, I truly believe you have everything within you to be a coach. So if you wanted to pivot into coaching, it's not that difficult. You just kind of need to know like the parameters of how it's different. Um, so I do have a question, like what happens if you have someone come to you when they want to do life coaching, but they have there might be some other stuff in the way, like ADHD or anxiety,
Sure.
depression. Um, how do you work with both that type of client?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of times the parents will be open and front with me. A lot of
Mhm.
my clients actually have a therapist also that they're working
Okay.
with, and they're working on something else. And then I'll even tell the parents, it's like I'll be able to deal with all this stuff, but this thing I'm not going to be able to. I'd rather stay away from.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, if it is something that is coming up for them, that's really important. So then I'll try to even refer them to a type of therapist, somebody that I trust that like I can work in tandem with,
Gotcha.
or I'll even when it comes to anxiety, like I have a whole module on anxiety. So even just start to give them the tools that they can start to use in order to, to break out of that. And I think it's really important to be able to get them as much support as somebody can get. I'm a big proponent of both therapy and coaching. I just think they both work differently. I actually on
Mhm.
my YouTube channel, I made a whole video the difference between coaching, therapy, and consulting, like what the difference is between that. So feel free to check it out over
Oh,
there.
cool.
But recognizing that there are certain things that like I'm not going to be touching, but in terms of productivity, in terms of personal development, in terms of certain tools that they can start to use in order to move their lives forward, that's my jam, and I'll be happy to be working with in
Yeah.
terms with that.
Well, this has just been awesome and so helpful. If you could leave our audience with just a few tips on, or for parents out there who are listening that, are thinking about finding a life coach, can you give them some tips on how to find a good life coach for their
Yeah,
kid?
sure. So number one is definitely referrals. I definitely need the referral game because there
Mhm.
are a lot of life coaches out there who aren't necessarily the greatest. When it comes to credentials, people are obsessed with credentials, but I think especially nowadays, people are losing more and more faith in credentials, especially because you could probably go online and just buy any credential that you want. So I would definitely look for referrals in terms of experience and looking for that change. That's definitely number one. Number two is most coaches will be willing to give like a free session. So I'll definitely take advantage of that and make sure that there is a connection, because even if the coach is a great coach, if they don't connect with your child or you, like it's not going to work. So making sure that you actually quote unquote vibe together
Mhm.
is going to be something that's going to be important. And just looking to see, I think especially nowadays social media is out there, and I think you could really look at somebody's social media and just see what is that they're talking about, the different ideas that they're sharing and whatnot. And you can pick up a lot based on different people, just based on, what they're sharing. And if they're not sharing anything, I just really go back to the referral based over there.
Yeah. Well, and I really love what you're sharing on social media. You have some great videos and some great reels and some great YouTube videos. And what is the name of your podcast? Is still going, the podcast?
Yeah. So so I have a new podcast that I started more in the coaching realm. It's called Unlocking You.
Okay.
And it's on personal development, both personally and professionally, and really just working on giving tips, shorter episodes, and really looking to help people out.
So if people want to connect with you and check you out as a coach, where should they go?
So you go to my website at bwschwartz.com, or this young adult program is called Next Gen Navigator. That's NEXGEN navigator.com. You can check it out over there, or you can go to my website and then find me out, over there, or on any of the social platforms. So you can feel free to find me on Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We're
everywhere.
all over the place.
Everywhere. So I'll put all the links in the show notes, you guys, so you don't have to hit pause and write those down. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I think people have, I think it's interesting because I think there's I think there is a stigma, especially in the therapy world, about people like getting that support, getting that help. And when you look at the high performers in the world, and the people that I look up to, is they have their whole support team. And they have like a team of people that are helping, supporting them. And I think it's so, sometimes our egos get in the way to say, like, I can figure it out myself, and there's no reason for it. And if we could have that team's that support, I'm not saying me, but anybody out there's so many people who'll be willing to get that support. And if you're the type of person who maybe had that support and you got burnt because it didn't work out well, but don't let that one time that you got burnt you 2 times by not finding somebody else. And I think if you can find that right person and stay, going back on what we were speaking about in terms of the feedback, get the feedback, try to figure out how you can just enhance and increase your life. And whether you're a younger adult or whether you're an adult, I think we all have a vision in terms of what our lives should be looking like. And if we can start to really step into that and really just get creative with it, be a little patient, set the right expectations. And I really think as long as we keep moving, then it doesn't make sense why we wouldn't be able to start to live that life.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I love that message. Thank you so much, Bennett, for being here. This has just been great.
Yeah, Lisa, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Please note that the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your therapist, doctor, or physician before implementing any suggestions from the show. The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is edited and engineered by Chelsea Weaver. If you're looking to start a podcast or ready to take the editing off of your plate, be sure to visit chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.